Hi, and welcome back to OTTB on Tap. This is episode 14. I'm Neve, and this week I'm channeling Emily. What's on tap this week? Well, we've got something really exciting to share with our audience. We have partnered up with the Retired Racehorse Project to follow the journeys of 4 riders throughout the process leading up to the event in October this year. The RRP is an organization near and dear to us, as Emily was a participant from the very beginning. And we're so thrilled to share our voices with them and continue the conversation about the versatility of OTTBs. This episode will feature a brief intro into the participants that we've chosen. Stay tuned for full-length episodes with each of these special trainers over the next 6 months in a series we're calling OTTB on Tap, the RRP Trainer Chronicles. So today we have with us Annika Greaney-Stanger, correct? From Fargo, North Dakota, and we're so excited to have you here, Annika. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background with horses?
Yeah, so I actually grew up riding in Sweden. My aunt was a dressage rider, and she kind of taught me the ropes, took me under her wing, and I had the opportunity with her to ride some pretty cool dressage horses growing up. And then I came over here to the US about 10 years ago now for college, and once I graduated, got back into the horses, and I've been working with off-track thoroughbreds now for quite a few years.
How did you get involved with off-the-track thoroughbreds in Fargo, and what brought you specifically to that part of the country? I'm really fascinated by that.
So originally I actually came over here on scholarship playing soccer.
Oh, wow.
For college, and then after I graduated, I had a couple knee surgeries, which meant that soccer kind of wasn't an option for me anymore. And I wanted to get back into the horses because it was something I loved doing when I was growing up. And a local friend of mine, who's actually now down in Lexington, she ponied at the track up here in Fargo and got me in touch with one of the trainers up there. And I got to go behind the shed row and look at all these horses. And he basically lined 10 of them up for me and was like, have at it. Go look at them, touch them, take them out of their stalls if you want to. And
it's amazing.
It was really cool. And now looking back, knowing that that isn't always the case, that people get that opportunity, you know, I was really lucky. And being that it's a small track is probably why.
Yeah.
So I picked out my first mare, Ulva Juice, who is a 2015. She retired because of COVID. She wasn't done running in her mind. She was a long distance runner, and those were the races that they were kind of cutting up here. So she retired, sound and very happy. And then I've had her now for 4.5 years. And then we were originally going to go down to Kentucky for the 2020 Tip Championships because I didn't know about the makeover when I got her, so I rode her too early and she became ineligible.
I see.
And then about 3 weeks before we were going to leave, she had colic surgery.
Oh, jeez.
And so I was talking with my friend Morgan, who introduced me up here, and she's like, well, why don't you just get a horse and come down for the makeover next year instead? So I did.
It's good to have friends like that.
Really cool gelding, sight unseen, off of jog videos, and he turned out to be a cribber. He turned out to have some ankle rounding and just a few things that weren't disclosed.
Yeah.
He's been amazing, and I have high hopes for him. And then we were down there last year, and I had a lot of fun and decided, let's do this one more time.
You were a top 10 finisher last year.
Yes.
In
which division? Trail and barrel racing.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yep.
And you said that you grew up riding dressage, but how did you get involved in the Western side of things?
I love doing a bit of everything.
Yeah.
I love experimenting and trying new things and learning new things. And I really believe in creating a very well-rounded horse. So my one horse, we competed in dressage and trail. That was the one that I ended up buying sight unseen. And then I had a client horse who I competed in trail and barrel racing. And she is more of a Western rider. So she wanted him kind of more started in the Western world. And it just kind of naturally came. He was a really cool war horse. He had 102 starts. He aged out of racing. So barrel racing just was kind of a natural choice for him. Yeah. And he did really well. So
that's very, very cool. And then tell us a little bit about your horse for this year.
So I have 2. Tis So Majestic is a 11-year-old retired broodmare. She is your very typical, ran a few times, really didn't manage to run anything exciting at all. I think she was dead last in every race she ran. She had 4 babies, and then none of those were kind of producing either. So she was retired from breeding, and it's kind of a fun story of how I got her, because I asked my friend down there who's down in Lexington, I was like, can you help me find a horse? And she's like, well, my friend works at these broodmare farms and she works with a bunch of trainers. I'm sure she can find you something. So she put me in touch, and I told her friend kind of what I wanted, and I was very specific, and I was like, if you have a majestic warrior baby, I really want one of those because I really love those lines. And a couple of days later, she gets back to me. She goes, yes, so I got one, and she's eligible for the broodmare division, but nobody likes her, and you can have her for free.
And you're like, I'm interested.
I was like, well, send me some video, like, show me what you got here. And she sent me this kind of, ugly, choppy video of the horse running around in a pasture.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I'll come look it up. So I get there, and she's like, so I just want to show you this other one first, because I really don't think you're going to want this one. So I have this other one that I think you're really going to like. So she showed me, and it was a nice enough mare. And she's like, you can have this one for free as well. Like, yeah. And she kind of taught me out of this mare. And I'm like, why does nobody like this horse? So then after she ran around in her pen and showed off for a bit, and we caught her, and she was lovey-dovey over my working student, and she was lovey-dovey with me, and I picked up her feet and I touched her everywhere and everything was good. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. Like, and she's like, are you sure? Yes, I will take the horse. And then they brought her to me at the horse park. So she was there for a couple hours, and then we loaded her up and went home, and she was absolutely perfect the whole way. And then I get her home, and I'm chatting with my friend. She's like, so do you want to know why, like, they didn't want you to have this horse? I was like, I mean, come on, you got to tell me at this point.
Yeah.
There's obviously something about this mare. And apparently she was an absolute witch and had picked people up and thrown them across the stall, was like so food aggressive you couldn't go in her stall, and like all this stuff. And from the moment I got her home, she has been the sweetest,
oh my God,
easiest, just best mare you could ask for.
That's amazing.
So just that environment change for her.
Yeah.
I mean, I go out to the pasture and I call her, and she comes up to the gate. I don't have to go get her. She's stands tied for hours. My farrier loves her. She's been absolutely fantastic.
That's so cool.
So it's really cool. And every time I give them an update down there, they're like, are you sure you're talking about the same horse?
I think this is just a great example of how much changing their environment can really, what you see at the track or what you see in a listing video is not necessarily what you're going to get when you get them home. And that change of environment can really make such a huge difference for them.
Yeah, and giving them a job.
Yeah.
And a job that they want. She's always happy to go out and work, and she is a workhorse. I call her my Energizer Bunny because she never runs out of steam. She just wants to keep going and going. But she's also a very challenging ride. Kind of reminds me about, you guys were talking about Alex in a couple episodes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Very powerful, strong-mouthed, strong-headed horse, and that really describes her really well. But when you get her to where she needs to be and you get her working, she's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my working student loves her. She rides her once a week. She's already taken her to a dressage clinic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's been really cool.
And what discipline are you going to be focusing her on?
Probably ranch work and trail.
Oh, cool.
And I only say that because she has the potential to be an absolutely amazing dressage horse, but kind of harnessing that power and drive is going to probably take a little bit longer than what I want to push for in just a few months. So we're doing a lot of dressage, really working on that foundation. But I think ranch work and trail is going to be the better options for her in the time span that we have. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it sounds like you have a really thoughtful approach to how you retrain off the track thoroughbreds. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up in your intro up was you're working with a charity called Mareworthy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yep. So I actually have 2 horses for this year. And the other one is Igoli. And she is a 2016 mare who I adopted from Mareworthy Charities. And Mareworthy is a really cool organization who are really filling a need in the thoroughbred aftercare industry where they are specifically focused on retired brood mares. So the ones that, just like Tessa, no longer have a career as a brood mare and they need a soft landing. And some of these bigger farms are able to offer a retirement home for their horses, but not all of them do. And unfortunately, we see those that end up in the slaughter pipeline and whatnot too. So they're filling a really cool need there of taking care of these brood mares. And either offering them a permanent home or finding them. And so when we were down there, her ad caught my eye and we went and looked at her and we visited with Kyle, and it was kind of a very spur of a minute, last minute thing. My wife was like, we went to visit this horse. She was like, before we went, we're not going to get another one. We're not going to bring two home with us. So
You're like, but there's two spots in the trailer.
Let's go take a look. Let's see what happens. And actually, she was the one that really fell in love with this horse.
Oh.
And they've definitely bonded. Igoli's been a challenge. She did not adjust well to North Dakota. The weather up here is challenging for some of them. We were dealing with a bunch of very strange body soreness and on and off lameness. Did a bunch of testing, a bunch of vet work, and actually landed on PSSM2.
Oh, wow.
Which you don't see as often, especially in the thoroughbreds. So we overhauled her diet. We did a bunch of body work, daily pemphing, all that kind of stuff. And she's sound. We have her under saddle. We're only about 5 to 6 rides in, but she's getting there. And she's super cool.
Yeah.
Really fancy mover. Was a $270,000 2-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Who they just couldn't get her pregnant. They tried and they tried for years. They did the Western, they did the Eastern medicine. They tried everything they could, and she just would not take. And she actually came from Windstar, and they contacted Mareworthy and asked them to help find her a new home.
It's really nice to also see those big, well-known breeding facilities trying to do the right thing by their horses and not just, as you say, like have them kind of go down the pipeline of the dark side of the horse industry. So that's very cool to know.
Taking that responsibility and also giving her the opportunity to actually have a job in life.
Yeah.
Because it could be easy for them to just kick her out in a pasture and be like, okay, go hang out with the babies. She loves babies. So it's kind of sad she didn't get to have one. But I'm really grateful that they took care of her all the way through.
And I think too, when they're bred that nicely and they are a really nice quality horse, they would like to see them go on and do something different, Well, can you let us know where we can follow you online or ways that we can follow your journey?
So I primarily post on Facebook, Annika Greaney, and then also on Instagram, Greaney_equestrian.
And we're really excited to have you collaborating with us this year.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
So why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and your experience with the RRP.
Sure. So my name's Julianne Pangal. I am an adult amateur from Western New York, and horses have been a part of my life forever. I grew up riding. I did hunter jumpers as a kid, and then I went to college in Western New York, and I did the equestrian team in college, the Geneseo equestrian team. And I stayed in that area and kind of fell into fox hunting, and I started eventing and exploring all of these different areas of riding too. So that's kind of what I've been up to over the past few years, fell in love with eventing and have been doing that.
The dark side, as we call it.
Yeah, I guess definitely coming from hunter jumpers for sure. But last year I attempted to go to the RRP for the first time, and I had a 3-year-old mare off the track. She was lovely, and we ended up getting held at the entrance exams just because she was growing and weedy and learning, and that was a very steep learning curve for me. But this year I'm trying again, and I'm actually this year on a team with a good friend of mine. So it's my horse that we'll be using, but we're going to try to do it together. So it's nice to split costs and share in the experience with someone else too.
How does that work with which discipline you guys pick?
So we have not chosen our discipline yet, and we've only had the horse a few months, so he hasn't picked either. He doesn't know what he excels at yet. But I think we're going to decide together when we get there. Both of us have, similar backgrounds in hunters, jumpers, she fox hunts as well. So we're going to all kind of agree between the three of us, her, me, and the horse, on what's going to make the most sense for all of us.
And you said that your background was in hunter jumpers. Do you feel like one of the things that you're passionate about is creating less of a stigma for thoroughbreds in the show hunter world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the reason I love thoroughbreds is because they're so versatile. So I have a thoroughbred and I could bring him to a hunter show, and then we could fox hunt during the week, and then maybe the next weekend we do an event. So because I kind of love something in all of those spaces, it's nice to have a breed that can transition easily to all of that too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that there is a little bit of a stigma in that space when you look at thoroughbreds versus warm bloods, but there's no reason thoroughbreds can't compete in that space too.
Yeah, I always said that my last thoroughbred that I had, he could have been a 3-ring horse for sure. How did you get involved in off-the-track thoroughbreds to begin? What was like your first sort of introduction to them?
So I guess my first real introduction, I rode thoroughbreds when I was younger, but in Geneseo, New York, where the equestrian team is, they had a couple thoroughbreds, and the owner there, Kim Sanford, occasionally takes them off the track. And we're also right next to the Finger Lakes racetrack as well. So my very first thoroughbred, I think I got him for like $250 off the Finger Lakes track.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun experience for me. I was just coming out of college, so I didn't have a ton of funds, but it was a way for me to, acquire a lower cost horse, I'll say, and have the experience of bringing them along and training them. And that was kind of my first experience there with one of my own.
And how did you get involved with the RRP? I know you said that you tried to go last year. How did you find out about it, and how did you decide that you were going to make that trek? Because that's quite a trip for you, right?
Yeah, it is quite a trip. I don't know if there is any one thing that turned me on to the RRP necessarily. It's something that I've heard about here and there. I've known a few people that have gone, and because I love the breed, in the back of my mind made it a goal to go at some point.
Yeah.
Especially, like I said, I'm an adult amateur, so I don't always have a lot of funds, and I enjoy the process of bringing a horse along. So it's nice to be able to get something off the track and really put in those first 2-3 years of work and have fun and get it to a point where it's kind of ready for its next person.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that process. And hearing about the RRP and with the horses I was that were coming in and out of my life at the time, it just seemed like it would be another fun adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And get to show in the Kentucky Horse Park is pretty special, right? And then tell me a little bit about your partner that you're doing this with.
Sure. So her name is Ashley Olin. She's around my age. We went to Geneseo briefly together and we're on the equestrian team together. And her and I both had boarded our horses at Leg Up Stables in Geneseo, New York as well. So we're just good long-term horse friends. And, she came with me to the Kentucky Horse Park last year just to kind of watch and see what the format of the RRP was. And she was a great supporter. And while we were down there, I was chatting with her and I said, would you ever want to come to the RRP? Like, you love thoroughbreds too. We ride in the same spaces. And her response was, I don't think I could ever afford another horse, but it would be a cool experience.
Yeah.
So this year, when I had a horse going, I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm going to go. And we talked about it last year, but would you want to be on a team with me so you could get that experience too?
Yeah.
And she was on board. So
that's really cool. It's good to have friends that are enablers.
Yeah.
That's how Emily and I ended up with way too many horses all of the time. So tell me a little bit about the horse that you've chosen for this year's RRP.
Yeah. So I have my RRP hopeful already. His jockey club name is Brooklyn, and we've been calling him Rye. He is a 4-year-old, so 2020 16-2 thoroughbred gelding. He raced 3 times and was not a good racehorse. So he came off the track, I believe, in May, June of last year, and I picked him up at the end of July. And he kind of has been hanging out, and we've just started working and doing some stuff now.
What was it that you liked about him when you saw him?
He has a very quiet demeanor, which is probably the thing that drew me to him the most. I really look for quiet, good disposition, especially since most of the time my goal is to kind of do a little bit of everything with my horses and then pass them on at some point. So ideally, I would love to introduce him to some fox hunting, introduce him to some eventing. We did a little dressage show this weekend. Ashley and I both popped on him for that. So
that's fun.
We're just going to see where he ends up.
And was there anything physically about him that you really were drawn to?
I mean, I love a good horse with size and substance. I consider myself a taller rider. I'm about 5'7", so I do like something bigger than 16 hands.
Yeah.
So I liked that he was 16.2, and he's a little bigger bodied. So that was a draw for me.
Yeah. So where can we find you online? Do you have a specific Facebook page for your horse or any sort of social media that we can follow?
So I have my personal social media accounts, but my Instagram is jpang1289 and I have a website too. It's OTTBmakeover.com.
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, the URL is available. Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing. That's really cool. So that's where you'll just post updates and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, mostly it's my personal Instagram I'm using.
Okay, awesome. So thank you so much for meeting with me and doing this brief episode. We really look forward to talking to you, and thanks for joining in with us.
Yeah, thank you.
So why don't you just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background on your relationship with horses and OTTBs.
Okay, so I'm Chelsey O'Brien. I live in Northern Virginia, but I grew up in Massachusetts, New England area. I've been riding for about 26 years, and I'd say most of those have been involved with thoroughbreds to some degree. I probably rode my first thoroughbred, and then I moved to a barn that did a lot of layups. I grew up not very far from Suffolk Downs when it was still open in Boston. And so we had horses who were laid up. And I helped with a lot of retraining and rehoming. I grew up doing the hunter jumper stuff, and that same farm had Western pleasure horses and did some other Western riding. And so I got introduced to that in my late teenage years. I went to college, rode for my college's equestrian team. I had an OTTB at the time. Her name was Pretty Girl Leslie. Loved her dearly. We just dabbled in some hunter jumper stuff, but I was a broke college kid, so we didn't get to compete a lot. I got riding for my college's team, and I thought it would be a brilliant idea after they told me I shouldn't ride horses anymore. Maybe I took about a year off because I had a pretty severe concussion. I've had a lot of those. And went to Suffolk Downs, and I looked at probably 20 horses, and there were some that I liked, but nothing that was like, this is the one. And then we were about to pack up and just head home, and a lady stopped me and she said, "Are you here to look for horses?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I got two." And so she brought the first one out, and I said, "That's it. That's the one." She goes, "Don't you want to see your jog?" I said, "I mean, you can." She jogged her up, jogged her back, and I said, "That's okay. Yeah, I'll take her. We'll put her right on the trailer." And now I've had her for 10 years, and I got her in hopes that she would be but she has zero aptitude for jumping. And kind of as a joke, the farm that I was at when I got her, she's kind of a big girl. She's like 16'2", lanky, long. And they had like a little fun show, and they had the barrel racing and all different little gymkhana things. And I said, okay, well, I'll just try Tomo in it. And then she was actually pretty good at it. Naturally, she had a lot more aptitude for that than jumping. And so that's how I kind of got into the barrel racing thing with her. And then I've kind of moved all over the place. I've worked as a broodmare manager. I've done a lot of retraining and rehoming. And now I'm lucky enough to be in my second year with Pastured Place, training a horse for the Retired Racehorse Project.
So this is your second time training for the RRP?
Yes, it was on my bucket list since 2015. I got a horse to do it. I still have her, but she was unable to go.
Yeah.
And so just by chance, one of the girls associated with Pastured Place had put out a very obscure post on maybe OTTB market, and I responded, and I was chosen, and I trained a horse last year for the RRP, and hopefully we will make it with UB this year.
So tell me a little bit about the horse that you've been partnered with.
So I chose a little guy named, unbeknownst to me, he made 15 starts 171,000. He's like a 15-2 hand, maybe 15-3 hand gelding. I chose him because part of the idea for us going, me and the other riders sponsored by Pastured Place, is to choose horses who may have some things that may make them more difficult to be adopted out. So UB has had tieback surgery. So that makes it a little bit harder to adopt them out. And then he does crib. So those are things that deter people from choosing a horse like him. He might not be suited to be an event horse. Not that it restricts them from being a hunter jumper horse, but he is a shorter, stockier type build. His conformation lends well to possibly doing ranch horse. My goals are to do barrels with him and or Western dressage and or ranch horse.
Awesome. Well, he sounds a lot like my horse that I currently have, but he's a quarter horse. So that like everything you described sounds perfect to me. I'm like 15-2, perfect. I had a 17 hand thoroughbred before I sold him and bought my new horse. And I'm so happy to have a much shorter horse these days.
Yes.
I like to say to everybody, if you want a really good life hack, it is to buy a small horse that jumps really well, because it always makes the jumps look big in the photos.
Oh, yeah.
So when you get the photos back, the jumps look really big, but you're only jumping like 2.3 or 2.6 or whatever. And I'm like, this is the best life hack ever. I never have to go any higher than this.
Exactly. I have a gelding who he's only maybe 15-2, 15-3, and everything he jumps, he makes it look like a dare, but he makes everything look huge.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. And a lot of people think that they really want a big horse, and that's fair. I mean, you can want whatever you want, and especially if you're tall or you just prefer that kind of ride. But I do find that, and this is not to jinx you, that the smaller horses are just a little bit easier on their bodies and easier on themselves overall. I think it's harder to keep a big, rangy horse fit and sound over the smaller, more compact types. But that's me making a pretty big generalization, but I have some experience to back that up as well. And so then tell us just briefly, we'll go into this in more detail in your first full episode, but tell us a little bit more about Pastured Place, because we knew them, Emily and I, as an organization before they changed the name to Pastured Place. And we just think they're a fantastic group of people.
Yeah, so they have been involved in the racing industry for about 20 years, and they're very passionate about aftercare. They want to see the best for all of the horses that retire. They have many adoptable horses at Meadow Springs in Oxford, Pennsylvania, but they also have many fully retired horses at another farm in
Maryland, right?
6M farm.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, they believe all horses would have a Pastured Place to call home. And their hope is to give that to a lot of other horses. They are open to putting horses on their watch list, horses who have different things that make them more susceptible to being put through bad situations, or if they're being run really hard and doing very poorly, but still having to run a lot, they're happy to put those horses on their list. The horse that I did last year, Cell Tower, she had like a mild bow. At some point, must have had some sort of crazy injury to her pectoral muscle because part of it is missing. So she must have impaled herself at some point. But I just think it's really special that they're willing to, I call myself like the land of misfits. I believe that any horse could be the horse of a lifetime if you just give them the opportunity. And a lot of people think that everything has to be a unicorn and it can never have any injuries whatsoever. It has to be perfect. It could never have X, Y, Z, but people are missing out on really great horses. And another thing that I think is great is there's a lot of thoroughbreds end up in English disciplines, and I like to bring awareness to people that thoroughbreds are just as worthy for Western discipline as they are for eventing or hunters, jumpers, dressage. I just want to bring awareness to people that Western is a good option for them as well.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. I feel like you made a really good statement there with a fantastic sound bite for this episode, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I feel like when you speak from the heart, those things just come out. And that's what we really love about doing this podcast and the way that it's brought people together. And like I said, Emily did the RRP a couple of times, and we have all of these close relationships with people throughout the country. And it's so special to us to be able to just sit around and have conversations about horses and in a way that feels really like we're just sitting down and having a conversation together, and also just raising that awareness to our listeners. And we started the group OTTB Market and never expected to have 90,000 members in there, but we have a platform that we just want to bring forward these discussions. And sometimes we're going to talk about things that are slightly controversial, but really it's all about us just gushing about how much we love thoroughbreds, So when we reached out to the girls at the RRP, they were just so gracious and wanting to collaborate with us and just getting as much exposure on them as possible, because I'd like to think that from listening to the stories that we share with people, that maybe it's going to change somebody's mind or pique their curiosity, or maybe they're going to get involved with thoroughbreds for the very first time, and they're going to have that same love and appreciation that we all have,
Yeah, I definitely believe that there is a terrible misconception about them. And I believe that when you're doing things like this or the RRP or anything, I'm also an ambassador for a page called the Western Thoroughbred. And all of this, I believe, over the last 10 years has made such a difference in the lives of these horses. Because I remember 10 years ago when I bought Tomo, I bought her for $600. There was nothing wrong with her. She was sound. Everything was fine. She's a big, beautiful mare. And nowadays, that price is tripled or quadrupled. Back then, they were just begging people to take them. When I went there, oh, just take this one. And now there's just so much more value in them. And to me, that's so exciting.
And I think that everybody's starting to appreciate how important all of the components are in the industry, from the breeders to the trainers at the track to the aftercare programs and the people that get these horses. And I think that Pastured Place is doing something that is so unique and really rare in this world, which is like the final piece of the puzzle. I think we have in a lot of areas that's just not really a possibility for people to have a place like that. But I think that just proving that it can be done might give people some hope that the industry as a whole is changing.
Yeah, and they're like the gold standard, and I think that a lot of people should take heed and think about the after part. And there are a lot of owners. I've worked for a lot of people who really, truly care about where their horses end up. And then there's always the bad apples or whatever. But I do believe that there are a lot of really good people in the industry. And I think that Pastured Place is setting a good standard for everybody to take into account of what can be done. What should be done in an idealistic world.
Are you also participating in the Make the Makeover portion, or are you just trying to raise awareness for Pastured Place?
I'm just trying to bring awareness to Pastured Place. So the foundation was started at the end of 2022. So this is the second full year of Pastured Place, and the hope is to bring awareness to their mission and what they're doing, which I think is really special and really different. I think there's a lot of really great aftercare organizations and foundations, but like you said, they're doing something completely different, and they have a lot of really special horses. And they really care about what happens regardless. If they have to be retired forever, they're able to do that for them. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And then where can people find you online to follow your journey? Or do you have any social media accounts that you'd want us to link to?
Yeah, sure. I post a lot on Facebook, which is just under my personal name, Chelsey O'Brien. And then I also have an Instagram account only dedicated to my journey with Yubi, which is RRP _ unbeknownst the number 2 me.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Let's get into it. Just introduce yourself to the audience and a little bit about your background in riding and off the track thoroughbreds.
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Lauren Garrett-Bond. I have been riding since I was 7 years old, which is like 5 minutes ago, or almost 40 years. I started out riding because I was a sickly little kid and I needed to do something for chest PT, physical therapy. And they thought that maybe bouncing around on a pony would be a really great way for me to gain some strength and build up my lung capacity. And so I started riding when I was 7. And I've been riding ever since. My most recent horses have all been OTTBs. As a child, I rode a lot of ponies that had unknown origins, but we have always had a thoroughbred in the barn somewhere. And I've just always had them as my favorite ever since I was little. And my childhood home was down Pimlico Road from Pimlico Racetrack. And so every day on my way to or from school, on my way out riding my bike with my friends, back when we used to do that outside, I would stop and just watch the Morning Breeze Works right there, Pimlico and Northern Parkway. And I would just sit there on my bike. And people would stop and be like, do you have a flat tire? Are you okay? Do you need help with your bike? And I'm like, no,
just watching the ponies.
Exactly. So that's really how I fell in love with horse racing. And my grandfather used to take me over to Pimlico to the track to bet on the ponies. And I never really got into that side of it, but I loved how strong and powerful and capable they were and how fast they were. I've always loved watching them. So that's how I found my way to watching the RRP, or back when it was the RRTP. I followed it from its very inception. I thought, what a cool idea that we're going to take these horses that have done something so magnificent and so specific and take them into other careers and give them other things to do. And that was really before I knew a lot about eventing and how much true thoroughbred blood was in the top eventing horses. I was a dressage rider. I remain a dressage rider. I jump very unwillingly, only because my first horse, my RRP horse from my trainer's 2016 RRP horse, likes to have the variety of jumping. So I jump with my eyes closed. I grab mane and
you're not supposed to do it that way?
Well, it seems to be working. Sally Cousins keeps telling me I'm doing great, so I'm going to keep going.
Exactly.
Like if the pros say it's fine, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so I sort of figured this is the first year where I've had the finances and the ability and the flexibility in my schedule professionally to take on a project horse. And so when we started talking last summer about like, let's find an OTTB, let's find somebody off the track who can go to Kentucky, do the things, maybe wants to stay and be a project horse and turn into my husband's horse someday. He also rides. Or maybe find her the right situation and move that horse on into the next professional career for them. So we started looking, and that's how we ended up applying and getting accepted this year.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your RRP hopeful horse.
So her name is Tisbit. She is a Tisnow granddaughter. She is out of West Virginia. She's West Virginia bred and raced. She has won just over $300,000 in her starts. She's never missed a month of racing in West Virginia. She came to the track when she was 2. She raced very briefly under someone else. And then she went to Ryan Gillespie, who has had her there for the last almost 3 years. She's 5 now. She raced for him every single month the entire time she's been there. She's one of the soundest horses I've ever met.
Wow.
And she's big-bodied. She's chestnut. She doesn't have a speck of white on her, which made doing her coggins really easy. I was really grateful. I don't have to draw anything. She's literally just chestnut. But she ran her last race in October of 2023, and she came in dead last. She won in August. She ran in August, and she won the race. And Ryan sort of decided he and his mother and his son are their primary caretakers. They've got a small little racing operation out there in Charlestown. Decided that he didn't want to run her down through the claimers. He wanted to let her go on to the next thing. So a really great woman named Eliza Truslow is over there, and she helps do a lot of marketing on OTTB Market. My trainer got another little chestnut mare through Eliza, a Curlin granddaughter, and she has turned out to just be the nicest, most honest, most solid little horse that we have on the farm. She's just a great little personality. So when Eliza posted Tiz, Sabrina sent her to me and said, hey, what about this mare? I think a mare is a good match for you guys. I think mares really like Matthew, my husband. This might be a really good fit for you guys. And so we went and saw her, took the trailer, and in the parking lot at Charlestown, the trailer lost a wheel.
Oh my God.
And so we got to meet her. Obviously at Charlestown, you don't get to ride on the backside at all. But we met her. She was sweet in the stall. Eliza has been working with her through the vet that she works with for years and had been hoping to grab her for her RRP horse this year, but had already picked her RRP horse by the time she came up available in December. So we went and met her on the 11th, lost a wheel on the trailer, had to get the trailer repaired. So we had her shipped to us on the 18th. So she came off of the track December 18th, and got just about 2 months and a couple of days of letdown. And now we're starting to work.
And so what do you think about her so far? Have you decided kind of the discipline that you're going to be focusing on, or are you just going to wait and see?
So I think I admitted publicly that I'm a dressage rider, and I guess I now have to stick to that. She will compete in dressage in October if everything goes well, because that's my wheelhouse. Yeah, so we're going to go and attempt some dressage to try to not embarrass ourselves. And if things go the way that I would like them to, we might also do a little bit of a freestyle Liberty, teach her to do some tricks, bow and roll over and fetch a rubber chicken, and God knows what else we'll come up with. But just some fun, clicker games that I like to play with my horses. And so we'll maybe demonstrate some of that.
Well, where can people find you online? Or do you have an Instagram or a webpage or anything that you're using to chronicle your journey?
Yeah. So Tisbit has her own Facebook page now, and it is her journey to the RRP Makeover 2024. You guys can find us on Facebook. We mirror that on Instagram because I'm old. And she will definitely be on the OTTB on Tap website as well. We will shout her out everywhere because she's a cool chick and a really classy girl, and we will give her as many cool opportunities as we can. But yeah, that's where we can find her right now, is we're Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to meet her. She sounds incredible. And I'm really excited that you're fairly local, so I can come and hang out with you in real life again. So
please come and hang out with us.
Well, thank you so much for, connecting with us. I know you're in Wellington and you're busy and everything like that, but we'll follow up soon to do a full episode with you. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at OTTB_on_tap. Find us on Facebook and TikTok, and feel free to reach out to us on our site, OTTBontap.com. See you next time.